This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you drive long haul, short haul, or heavy haul, they're here to empower and inspire women in the trades on tncradio.live. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. We're a show that works to inspire and empower women in trucking, in the trades, and every profession. We tackle all kinds of topics and work to encourage women to be their very best with informative guests and women who've been champions. I'm Shelley, and
I'm Kathy.
No topic is not allowed on our rig. We tackle the tough topics along with the not so tough topics, and we like to feature experts and celebrities who can assist women in being the very best they can be. Women champions who've overcome major odds are people we love to feature on our show. They've climbed many mountains of their own and are great examples for our listeners. Lisa Thompson is one of them. She's the second American woman to climb the K2 summit, considered to be the deadliest mountain in the world. She entered the male-dominated world of high-latitude mountaineering to show she had as much moxie as any man. Before climbing K2, she summited Mount Everest in 2016. In 2017, she was featured in Capturing Everest, the Emmy-winning documentary produced by Sports Illustrated. Lisa competed in what's been traditionally a man's world, defying the naysayers. She's also a breast cancer survivor. Lisa has a new book called Finding Elevation, about overcoming fear and finding the courage within to climb the world's most dangerous mountain. It's got great messages for our listeners. She's with us today to tell her story. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Shelley. It's great to be here.
So I thought we could start with you telling us about yourself. What got you into climbing mountains?
Oh my gosh. Well, I like to say that I started climbing mountains out of spite. Like many people, probably many of your listeners, the best way to get me to do something is to tell me that I can't do it or shouldn't do it.
Oh, yes.
And that was certainly true.
You're a lady after my own heart. There you go, Lisa.
So the longer version of that story is that I was the only woman at my level at a new company. I was in my 30s, and this is in Seattle, where climbing is a big part of the culture here. And so my male colleagues, who were not bad guys at all, they would, every weekend or so, they would go climbing in the Cascade Mountains near Seattle. And I desperately wanted them to see me as capable and as part of their group. And it didn't occur to me that I could just walk up to them and say, "Oh, climbing, that sounds like fun. Can I join you?" Instead, I got really frustrated, hearing their stories on Monday morning when they would return to the office and just seeing their camaraderie and the bonds that they were building. And so I decided I would just go climb my own damn mountains. And that led me to eventually to the top of Everest. And as you mentioned, Shelley, to the top of K2, the most dangerous mountain in the world. And in the beginning, while it's true that spite and this desire to be seen as capable by the men in my office that's what pushed me into mountaineering, I really over time gained so much more from my time in the mountains, and that the growth that's happened and what I've learned about myself has really shifted over time. So it was spite that got me there, but I've learned so much and gained so much more after that.
That's amazing. Now, I know a lot of people have heard of Mount Everest, but K2, maybe not so much. Where is K2 and how high is it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so true. If I, go to a cocktail party or meet people, they'll, be excited and want to hear about Mount Everest. And I'll want to say, but there's this other mountain that's so much more difficult that I also climbed. And they're like, yeah, whatever. We want to know if you saw any dead bodies on K2 or on Everest. So it's just, Everest, because it's the highest mountain, it has a lot of cachet as a result of that. And it's very well known and people have heard of it and have probably seen movies about it at this point. But K2 is the second highest mountain in the world. It's about 800 feet shorter than Mount Everest. And K2 is on the border between Pakistan and China. And as you said, it's considered by many to be one of the most dangerous mountains in the world. In part, that is because it is far more remote than Mount Everest. So if you can imagine on Everest there, because it's become so popular to climb, there's all this infrastructure that's been built up to support the climbers that go there every spring. And so at base camp on Everest, which is above 16,000 feet, there's an emergency room. You can have Wi-Fi. There are 1,000 people there every year from all over the world who are, getting to know one another and preparing for their climbs. There are helicopters, commercial helicopters that will pluck you up from nearly the top of the mountain and whisk you to safety if that's what you need. None of those things, none of those comforts, none of that infrastructure exists on K2. It's still a very, very remote mountain, again, in Pakistan. So there's no infrastructure like that at base camp. If you want a helicopter, you have to negotiate with the Pakistani army to get it. So it's a much different vibe than Mount Everest. And aside from that, the weather on K2 is just notoriously fickle. So it is known for just monster storms that come from nowhere, and threaten to, blow climbers off the mountain or dump so much snow that the route becomes very avalanche prone and unsafe. And then I would say the third thing that makes K2 much more challenging than Everest is that there's a lot of what we call objective hazards. So there are avalanches that are much more likely on K2 due to the degree of the slope, and a lot of rockfall on K2 as well. So all of those things combined make it one of the most dangerous mountains in the world. And I, feel grateful just to have, for one, summited on my first attempt, and then also to have summited safely with my team.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. And being a woman, did you get some pushback, especially on K2?
I think it is the culture of high altitude mountaineering is changing. I've heard multiple people say recently that there are more women entering high altitude mountaineering than men at this point. So it's changing. Most of the pushback that I experienced was really early on in my climbing career. And I could, and I write about this in my book, there were many times when I could just, get this vibe from someone that oh, isn't that cute? You think you're going to climb, the highest mountain in South America. Good for you. And there was just this vibe often of being discounted, or, people looked over me and didn't think that I could do it. I wasn't taken seriously. And that, like I said in the beginning, that of course drove me to just work so hard to be as ready as I could possibly be to climb whatever mountain was my next objective. And that, for example, when I summited Denali, which is the highest mountain in North America, it's in Alaska, part of that climb meant that I had to carry nearly my body weight combined between a backpack and a sled. So I would carry and pull over 100 pounds. And it was very important to me that I contributed equally to my team. I was the only woman on the team, and I didn't want anyone to take weight out of my backpack because they thought I couldn't carry it, or give me a lighter load one day because they thought I couldn't carry it. And so that just drove me to just focus very intently on preparation, on being as prepared mentally and physically as I could be to take on these mountains, because I never wanted to be to contribute in a negative way to my team, and I didn't want anyone to see me as not being capable either. So it really pushed me.
Oh man. And bravo. How do you train to climb mountains? Because obviously you have to do some practice. It takes a distance and time away from work to actually climb a mountain. How do you even prepare?
Yeah, it's something that has been really important to me. So important that in 2018, I started my own company to coach mountaineers. It's called Alpine Athletics.
Okay.
And so it totally depends on where you're coming from. Some people that I coach have, climbed, say, 5 of the 7 highest mountains on each continent. So they're very skilled already. Other people that I coach are coming to me and they maybe saw a movie about climbing a big mountain and thought it was something they wanted to try, and their goal someday is to climb Mount Everest. So it depends on your starting point for sure. But the sort of big takeaway about about training to climb any mountain is that it's an endurance activity. And people often don't see it that way. They think, oh, I have to, like lift a bunch of heavy weights and do a bunch of squats in the gym. And it's really much more about building your aerobic capacity, which is not fun or sexy work. It's a lot of like running at a moderate pace and speed to build up what your lungs can do. And then you mentioned, Shelley, just the time away to climb as well. Part of preparation is to make sure that you've got the skill necessary to climb whatever your mountain goal is going to demand of you. And that was certainly a big deal for me before I attempted K2. I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable climbing sketchy rock, that I was comfortable moving at 25,000 feet on near vertical rock while wearing a down suit and crampons. And so a big part of preparation is to make sure that your skill and ability match what that mountain demands of you. And I think, that sometimes gets overlooked. Sometimes people let their ambition get ahead of their ability. And it's so important to me to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible. I think it's actually a bit disrespectful to a mountain to think that, I didn't prepare appropriately, or I don't understand what this mountain is going to demand of me, and to show up and think that you can have a good experience. So preparation to me is huge, big deal.
Makes sense. Just in terms of safety.
Yes.
I think a lot of people who have never climbed a mountain want to know, why does somebody want to climb a mountain?
It's really interesting you guys we're talking about this, because I'm going to Machu Picchu in October. It's a 5-day hike.
Yes,
That's great.
Amazing, Kathy.
And it makes me wonder, God, because I've already started working out, and I'm talking. I have a personal trainer at work,
Great.
and now I've committed. I've got a bunch of my coworkers coming, and so I'm thinking. I keep asking myself, what do I need to prepare to do this 5-day hike plus an extra day to Rainbow Mountain? But
we'll talk after, Kathy. We'll get you ready.
Sounds good.
What do the mountains represent? Is it a symbolic thing, or is it a thrill-seeking thing? I think a lot of people go, why do you want to climb the world's biggest summit? Why do you want to put yourself at risk? Is it scary? That sort of thing.
Great questions. And that is sort of what's at the heart of my book, is exploring what it is that causes us to take, or caused me at least, to take such big risks. And so the answer is not a short one, but mountains for me represent a way for me to find out what I'm capable of. And that was very, very true in the beginning of my climbing career. And as I've matured and, started to answer some of those questions and started to understand my capability, mountains have taught me so much. So they have also taught me about humility. They have taught me about what it's like to be on a team. If I am physically tied to you, Shelley, as we're ascending, just say Mount Rainier, which is the highest peak in Washington, I'm relying on you to stop me if I should fall, and vice versa. And that sort of, intense teamwork, which I'm sure you've probably experienced too in your career, Kathy, is something that draws me back to the mountains time and time again, because it's a very rewarding feeling to know that I've contributed in a positive way to this team, and we've achieved this goal that, while we're climbing maybe separately, and we're coming with different backgrounds and experiences from different parts of the world, we've worked together to accomplish this goal safely. And so that sense of teamwork is something that brings me back every time.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
I went to Tibet, to base camp in 2018. I did a 7-day tour, and because I was touring all the monasteries because it's something I've always wanted to do. And we ended at base camp. There's a monastery there. It was November 22nd. It was the last day that the camp was open, and I managed. The night before we were hiking to the actual sign, they have at the monastery guest house, they don't have doors. It's these yak blankets. And I went to get more hot water because it was so freaking cold from the main place anyway. And I tripped over a step, and I as I'm going down, I yanked on the yak blanket to stop myself. So I tore my ligament, and I also sprained my foot.
Oh no.
But so the next morning we're hiking to the thing, and I'm thinking, you know what? I've made it all the way here. I'll be dipped if I'm gonna be not making it there. I hiked that last 4 kilometers with a sprained foot to that sign.
Wow.
Just to make sure that I could get that picture and say I did this,
That's right.
And I filmed. I don't know if it's there's only one base camp, right?
On Everest?
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels, but I mean, this is like the very, very bottom one.
Yeah, so there's a base camp on each side. There's 2 very common routes to climb Mount Everest, one on the north side in Tibet, which is where you were, and one on the south side in Nepal. So on each side there's only one. Yeah,
okay, because I remember, because I was in Nepal for 5 days, and then I went to flying through the air, taking the pictures of Mount Everest. I gotta tell you, we went so close. I paid for a $200 trip just to fly to Mount Everest and back. It's impressive. It's so impressive. Movies don't really depict it properly, I don't think. When you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, right? So
it's so true. And I was fortunate just this past fall to go back to Nepal and co-led an all-women's expedition to climb a different mountain there. And there's a point as you're walking in, and maybe you experience this too, Kathy, where you're still kilometers and kilometers away from even base camp, but you can see the mountain.
Yeah.
And it looks so huge and daunting.
Daunting is a good word.
Yes,
so far away.
Bet.
And I still, even this year when I was, I'd climbed it, it's been several years, and I saw it, and I thought, how in the world did I get this little body from standing right here all the way up there and back? So it's still a view that
kudos to you, having been there personally and seen it and experienced it. I mean, hats off to you 1,000 times over, because that's something. Oh yeah, that's impressive. Very,
it really
very
is. So what's scarier, going up the mountain or going down the mountain?
Oh my gosh, going down for me is much scarier. And some of that is, just related to gravity, right? Because you're physically facing away from the mountain. And so you're much more likely to fall. Most of the accidents that occur on big peaks actually occur on the descent as opposed to the ascent. And so for me, it's much more dangerous to go down. And there was a point on Mount Everest, actually, where I had summited, I was feeling great. And, they still have a little swagger in your step. I'm still at 26,000 feet. So still actually in what's called the death zone, but starting to come down. And my climbing partner and I were at a point on the route called the Geneva Spur, which is just below the high camp. And we look down over the sort of rocky precipice, and we see all these people coming up the ropes. And we know that we're going to have to stand there and wait for them to come up before we can use the ropes to sort of rappel down like a fireman. And so there's another way to descend with the ropes. It's not quite as secure. It's called arm wrapping, where you actually take the rope that's tied to the mountain, and you wrap it around your arm, sort of your forearm, and then you lean forward to create tension and walk down the mountain. And so this terrifies me. It still terrifies me today, even though I've done it for hours on end. And I remember my friend looking back at me and saying, we're going to have to arm wrap this, or we're going to be standing up here forever. And my gut reaction was, there's no way I can do that. And I looked at him and I knew that, I'd climbed with them for years. He knows me and what I'm capable of. And I nodded my head and wrapped that rope around my right arm and leaned forward and started walking down the rock. And while it was terrifying, I arm wrapped the entire rest of the descent, because that just solidified for me that I was so much more capable than I thought I was, that I was letting myself get in my way of believing what I could do, and that he could see it before I could. So just a little anecdote about descending. But to answer your question, Shelley, it's much, much more dangerous and much more daunting to me to descend than to go up.
For me, daunting would be going up and going down, because I've never done any of this.
Fair enough.
And I think it's just amazing. You've risen to the challenge, Lisa, and you were able to compete with the men. This is marvelous. And you proved yourself. What were some of the things you learned about yourself that these mountains gave you the strength to realize?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have realized is the importance of listening to my own intuition. So that example that I just gave you on Mount Everest, I didn't have that ability then, right? I doubted that I could safely descend that way. And I have learned over years of being in the mountains and years of often being, disregarded, that I have to listen to my own intuition. And that also makes me a better partner if I'm able to say to whoever I'm climbing with, like, I'm not feeling this today, or I need to take a break, or something's not right here. I didn't always have that strength, or that I wasn't always in tune with my intuition. There was a moment when I was descending K2 where sort of similar scenario as on Mount Everest, and I did not feel safe descending via that method that I described, via arm wrapping. It was a point on K2 where, because I'm a mountain nerd, I knew that more people had died than any other place on the mountain. And it was again congested. And this time, I listened to myself, and I knew that I needed to descend a safer way. And I actually told the same climbing partner, no, that this is what feels right to me. I'm going to rappel. And that got a little complicated because there was someone on my rappel rope. So if you can imagine, I'm descending, and there's actually two ropes in that section, one meant for people going up and one meant for people coming down. And someone had decided to climb up the rope meant for people to descend.
Oh boy.
And so when I realized what was happening, I screamed at the man very loudly. I said probably not nice things to him to try to get him moving, and he didn't. And so, my choice is again to wait, which at 24,000 feet is not the best choice. I would have run out of oxygen. I would have created a bigger traffic jam. And so I descended to this man and spoke to him and tried to get him to start moving. And he was sort of beyond his limit and not able to continue climbing. And so I had to very delicately anchor myself into the ice with the tools that I had, and then maneuver my way around him in order to continue rappelling. And it was one of those moments where, when it was all said and done, I realized that I'm much more capable than I think I am. I think that's true for every single one of us.
I was just gonna say that. I think we all stop ourselves.
We do.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
We do. And sometimes it's these intense situations that, you're put in for whatever reason, and you don't have a choice but to use every tool and all of your resilience and all of your, skills and background to get through it. And you realize, wow, I am capable of that. And what I hope is that the next time that little voice, pops into my head saying, I don't think I can do that, that I go back to another scenario where I thought that, and I actually did. I actually was capable. I think that's the learning for me. And that's one of the things that mountains have taught me.
I think that's really good advice for every single listener out there, regardless of the situation that they're currently facing. That if they think they can't do it, maybe reflect back on some other difficult situation that they've managed to come through, and look at it a little different, and use that as fuel to say, you know what, I did that, so I can do this. Right?
So
Yes.
true. It is so true. And I think it doesn't matter if it's about asking your boss for a raise, or, having a difficult conversation with your spouse, or having another child, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
It is so true.
Yeah, you could take a step back and say, I did all of these things. This is a piece of cake. I can handle this.
Like, just this last week on the dozer, when I was on top of these really big piles of dirt, and I had to flatten all the tops. Well, these crevices on either side of this dozer were so deep and so steep, and I'm in a big piece of machine, right? So you think one wrong move with my wrist will send me flying down this crevice. And I started looking at that. I'm like, well, you know what, Kathy? You can either sit here and dwell in that fear, because let me tell you, my gut was like, ugh. But then again, my brain kicks in, and no, you got this, you can do this. And just I put, every step that I needed to do to get through it, and I did. And by talking myself through it out loud, do this and do this, it actually, the fear disappeared, and I was focused more on what needed to be done. And at the end of it, I was quite proud of them. Like, damn, girl. Damn, look what you just did. Look what you just did.
And verbalizing that is important, isn't it? To kind of retrain our brain, or convince our brain that, get over this. This is not too scary. I can do this. I can do this. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I talk to myself a lot when I'm climbing.
I talk to myself a lot anytime. I can't imagine how much I'd be talking on a mountain.
Oh, wow.
So, Lisa, these things, you tested yourself to a degree most people don't. Would you say that this kind of inner strength that you discovered, did that also help you when you found out you had breast cancer, and be able to go through this and become strong and be a survivor?
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I thought about that question a lot. Was it cancer that helped me in the mountains, or was it climbing that helped me get through cancer? And I think both are true, because they're so intertwined for me. And so I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 42. I, had a routine mammogram before work one day. Never in a million years did I think, when I walked into that exam room, that the outcome would be that I had tumors in my left breast. Never thought that. And so, part of the learning or the realization is that life is so fragile, and it can change in a second. And that has certainly contributed to me wanting to accomplish all the things in the mountains and in life that are important to me, whether that's writing a book or whether that's climbing Mount Everest. So cancer definitely influenced the rest of my life, and it still does today. There were also moments, when I had cancer, part of me getting through it was just to think in really small steps about what I needed to do, what decision I needed to make. Sometimes it was, I'm just gonna, do the laundry, and I'm gonna celebrate when I get through with that, because it just feels so impossible today to do anything. And that is true in the mountains too. Like, I think similar to what you were saying, Kathy, like, I'm just gonna take, like, I'm gonna climb to that next rock, and I'm gonna celebrate it when I get there. And then I'm gonna think about what the next thing is that I need to do today. And so they are, for me, climbing and having cancer are now so intertwined and so sort of like influence one another in positive ways. And I'm grateful that I get to take from each of those experiences the things that allow me to keep growing and evolving.
Mm-hmm. You'd almost think that cancer is the biggest mountain you've ever climbed, right? You've ever overcome, is that.
For
right?
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that we're put in those situations for reasons. At that point in my career, I was very, very focused on like achieving everything I could in a corporate setting. And after cancer and just realizing how short life is, I totally reprioritized my life.
Mhm.
Stepped away for a while from that corporate environment, got a divorce, actually sold a lot of things, and it really just caused me to focus on what was really important to me.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Sometimes that has to happen.
Yes.
We do an introspective and we take a step back and say, what do I really, really want? And am
Mhm.
I being who I'm truly supposed to be? In a lot of ways, I think the pandemic has done that with a lot of people.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think I sort of needed, that like abrupt you have cancer moment to cause me to have that introspection. I think I was so focused on other things that I needed someone to really just whack me in the head and get me to pay attention. And hindsight today, looking back, I'm grateful for that because I know my life would not be as full and meaningful if I hadn't had it.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
Lisa, you've led such an incredible life and you've risen above so many obstacles, even when there was major adversity. It's interesting what adversity and fear really does to the human psyche. I think we do become very myopic in what we're doing. We just become so focused and we stop taking care of ourselves, a lot of different things. And sometimes we need a jolt to say, hey, you've got to get out of this chaos. This is not good for you.
Right.
My 13 years of nursing, if the one thing that it taught me is that people think they have time and they don't necessarily do. And I know for a fact, I've been at the bedside of, I'm going to say hundreds and hundreds of people at the end stage and holding their hand and having them tell me, all the regrets that they had.
Yeah.
They didn't forgive enough. They didn't travel enough. They didn't love enough. They're still full of anger and resentment for family members or whatever it is, right? And I remember back then, thinking, I'm not going to live my life like that. I don't want it to come to the end and think like, oh man, I should have did this, I should have did that. And so I have spent my entire life, not to mention the fact that I should be dead 10 times over already and I'm not, that I survived. But I came to terms that God did not leave me on earth to sit on the couch and waste precious time. And so I use every moment, if not every second of my waking hour to do something I feel to make a ripple effect of positive vibes to the world, to give hope back.
Yeah.
And it's so important to me. Like right now, I'm just going through the whole thing. I'm selling my house. I had to put my mom into a better home, and I'm looking at all the stuff that's cluttered, that's collected. And as of this moment, I'm the most minimalistic person that's gonna, because it's like I'm 53 and I'm looking, I'm like, what the heck? Like I'm at that crossroads where no, this is not where I need to be, this is not where, right? So I'm really doing a lot of introspective, and I'm sure when you came to terms with the whole cancer thing, it was similar, right? Like what
Yes.
is important? What isn't
Yes.
important?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such,
And
especially the stuff for, I don't
right?
know, 3 or more months. I just lived out of a couple of duffel bags, and it felt so good. It felt so good to be like, what am I going to wear today? Well, I only have these 3 things. I guess it's
Oh
one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's life altering, but in a good way.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I look at a lot of my coworkers, and I look at their lives, and or the typical life, right? You go home, you go to work, and you do all that. That is not who Kathy is designed to be, and so I choose that no, from this that I'm going to be doing something way different. And I think I'm rather blessed to be able to see that, to remove the blinders and see that there's so much more to life that people allow themselves to live, you know?
Hmm.
It's almost like they're holding themselves back from, they have dreams and goals, but oh well, I got this and this, and oh, it's okay.
Now's not the right time.
Yeah.
There's never a right time. Never.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's very true.
You got to make the time.
That's right.
Yes.
Create
Yep.
it.
And maybe fear is one of the biggest reasons people say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. They don't
Yeah.
admit they're afraid, but maybe inside that's the biggest obstacle.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
believe that.
I think that's very true. I think sometimes it's also hard to see what's on the other side of that fear. It's a question I ask myself sometimes is when I notice that I'm being afraid, whether it's in life or in a relationship or in the mountains, is what's on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that, version of me or me past whatever I'm being confronted with is what motivates me to move through it, to move through that
Mhm.
fear. And I think, like you said, Kathy, we often get so just sort of stuck and myopic and unable to move or think beyond whatever is fearful in the moment.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
You know, Lisa, climbing a mountain, not knowing what's on the other side. You were saying on the other side of that fear. There's certainly, I'm sure, fear that you're feeling when you're climbing the mountain. You're not sure what to expect. You're not sure what Mother Nature is going to hand your way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be so totally self-sufficient, but also a team player because you have other people with you.
Yep.
Mhm.
It pulls things out of you you probably would never know that you had inside of you, because you have to deal with everything in the moment. And
Hmm.
you're probably not dwelling on all the bad stuff that some people and a lot of us tend to dwell on that clutters up our thinking. You've got to be in the moment all the time.
Yes. Which is one of the things that I love about climbing. And I love that from, very early on, that sense of like, all I have to worry about today is eating and breathing and climbing and taking care of myself. I don't have to check my email. I don't care what's going on Instagram. Like,
Mhm.
it's very freeing, or it has always been very freeing to me to only think about those things that are truly important for my safety and for me contributing to my team. And it is one of the things that brings me back time and time again. Just having returned from this all women's expedition in Nepal, that was especially true on that climb where we were all women, and there have been other all women expeditions, but for us it meant that all of our porters were female, everyone who supported us at base camp was female, and it was so incredible to see us like drop our egos and also just be in the moment with each other and just
Mhm.
Yeah.
enjoying like moving together up the mountain and having meals together and getting to know one another. It was just such an incredible feeling. The other side of that is it's hard for me to walk away from that. It's very hard for me to
Yeah.
have to come home and be like, oh God, now I do have to check my email. I do
Sure, you
have
have to be connected again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes the clutter. Yeah.
Right. But I'd like to think that, after each of those experiences, I take a little bit of it with me. Like I carry it with me. And it takes longer and longer, I find, for it to sort of, be diminished by just the day-to-day stuff that we all have to deal with.
I think that too many people don't live in the moment, and that really is the best way to not stress yourself out. People are either in the past and they're stuck
Hmm.
there, or they're thinking and worried about the future, which they have no control of the future at all. They can think
Mhm.
about the direction they want to head, but they're not enjoying what's happening in the moment. They can be having conversations with somebody else and they're busy texting at the same time. It's like, that's not in the moment. It's amazing how distracted people are today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so, and I struggle with it too. I'm a horrible multitasker. And I think, again, that's why having a counterbalance to that is so important to me, to be able to just like focus on what is absolutely essential in the moment. It keeps me going back to the mountains for sure.
That's wonderful. So, what do you want people to be able to get out of your book, Lisa?
It's a very interesting question for me, because part of me wants to say I want people to get whatever they need out of it. And I don't know if as an author I should prescribe that. But what I have heard from people who've had the chance to read the early versions of it is that it's been incredibly inspiring for people, and not just for people who are interested in climbing, but for people who, especially women, who have been told no, or told that they shouldn't do something or couldn't do something, or have had a goal that other people told them was too audacious or big, and that it's helped readers realize that they can accomplish those things. And so that, to me, it is a little bit overwhelming. When I set out to write in 2015 when I had cancer. So it's been a multi-year process, and I've learned a lot about, the art of memoir and the art of writing. I certainly haven't figured it all out. But after that, arduous road of like editing and writing and rewriting, and to finally see my memoir, about to be in the world, and to hear from people that it's impacting them in a positive way, is just incredible. It's one of the most incredible feelings I think I've ever had. So I hope, that readers find it entertaining. I hope that, I think it will appeal to readers who are interested in knowing what it's like to climb a big mountain, and especially what it's like to do that as a woman.
Hmm.
I think it will shed some light on just human motivation and risk taking, and why it is that we take the risks that we do in life. And I think it will also, or I hope it will also inspire people to set a big goal, or to, look past whatever's in front of them that's scary or fearful, and to take the next step towards whatever their goal is. Those are the things that I would hope for the book.
And that's what's so very needed today. And certainly you're an inspiration. And somebody may not decide that they want to go climb a mountain, but they can use that metaphor to climb
Yes.
that mountain that's in their way,
Yes.
perhaps.
Yes.
Or you can use a bulldozer and move that
Or a
mountain.
bulldozer.
There,
I
there you
might
go. Yeah,
borrow
I
your
like that,
bulldozer
Kathy.
sometime.
Uh-huh.
That's a good metaphor too.
Interesting when I was pushing this 400-ton pile of dirt, which is a mountain in itself, and I'm pushing through it. I'm like, yeah, I got this, right? Move.
I so want to come hang out with you at work one
Yeah.
day.
So how big is your bulldozer, Kathy?
Oh my God, it's the biggest in the world. It's it's really hard to explain. Um, okay, a fuel truck, I guess that kind of not an 18-wheeler, but just a regular fuel truck.
Uh-huh.
It's bigger than that. That's all I can say.
Ooh, okay.
It's so big. It's so big, but it's the power that it has. I cannot tell you that, when I'm pushing that pile of dirt and I'm thinking, oh, I'm frustrated with other things going on in my life. All of a sudden, just knowing that I can bulldoze my way through this pile of dirt, that
Mhm.
I got this. It doesn't matter
That's
what's
right.
coming my way. I got this, man.
That's
Look
right.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
sometimes that's all you need to have, I think, mentally to prepare yourself to head in the right direction, to overcome those obstacles. And
I think
yeah.
it's believing in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, it
Yes.
is.
It's a
Really is.
mindset.
Yep.
Because
And
when standing on the ground looking at this giant piece of equipment thanking, oh my God, I could have easily said, you know what? Yeah, no, that's a little too intimidating for me. But I'm like, oh, hell no, I am scared shitless. And I might fail, but I don't care. I'm going to try it anyway. Right.
there you
And I'm
go.
doing it.
Love it.
That's right.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that's the right mindset. So, Lisa, where do people find your book, Finding Elevation?
So you can, anywhere books are sold, you can pre-order right now on Amazon. If you just search Finding Elevation, my name, Lisa Thompson, you'll find it. It will be published and on bookstore shelves on January 10th. And so after that point, you can get it any place that books are sold.
Excellent.
Nice.
This is so much fun. Bravo,
Isn't
Lisa. You are a
Oh.
champion. Oh, my goodness. I
Thank you
think
so
if you could move a mountain, you could do that too.
She's a champion and then some. Holy
Yep.
Thank
cow.
you. This has been a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Very, very, very inspiring. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm planning a trip to Nepal again this coming in June. I'm going to India for my Hindi book launch. They translate it into Hindi, so I'm going
my
there for 2
gosh.
weeks. And I am spending 5 days in Nepal. So just because I fell in love with it when I was there. But I'm not going to hike a mountain there. I'm going to be more focused on human trafficking when I'm there. So, but
we the part of this last climb, we raised money for girls to go to school, and there were girls from a particular part of northern Nepal that are often trafficked. So thank you for doing that
actually,
work.
when I was there last time, we were doing some studies, and there's 8,000 women a year disappear for being sold into human trafficking.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the young girls coming off
Yes.
the villages, off the mountain to go
Yep.
into town. And that's where they get trafficked. And of course, a lot of them get sent to India and then
Yep.
for all over the world, which is absolutely horrible. So yeah, my good friend makes bags. She's got girls that are rescued from human trafficking, and they make beach bags out of recycled products from the ocean. And so yeah, so I'm gonna go there with her and see what she does with these women, and just it'll be super cool. Super, super cool.
That's gonna
Thank
be
you for
great.
doing that. It's so important.
Yep.
This has been really, really good.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you
My
being.
pleasure.
This has been terrific talking to you.
Oh, it's been so
Yeah,
interesting.
Very
Oh my
fun. I
God.
love connecting with other women who are doing amazing things. So it's been a pleasure.
And now this upcoming trip to Machu Picchu, I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it.
That's right. That's
You
right.
you got it. You got it.
You got this.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at info@tncradio.live.
Thank you for listening to another great interview on tncradio.live. And don't forget, be sure to subscribe to our podcast of Women Road Warriors. It's free. All of the material you hear on tncradio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of tncradio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.